Okay, so welcome to the AudZone seminar, or webinar we should say. It's our first webinar. We've done a lot of testing on the equipment. Hopefully all goes well. Please be patient with us if there are some glitches, but we hope there are none. Again, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We will either try to get to them throughout the webinar, or we are going to record videos afterwards or get back to specific questions. All right. Just wanted to give you a quick overview. There are still people coming in here at times, but we're just going to get started because there will be a recording for everyone at the end as well. So the topics that we're going to cover today is basically we're going to go through the AudZone basics first. Go a little bit through the basic workings, a little bit about best practices, like how we use AudZone and how it's intended to be used. And then we are going to go into the overview of the actual software, the session use, go through notes and reports, and especially important, the compliance manager. Now, on this webinar, there will be people that have used AudZone for some time, and then there will be some that haven't even signed up yet and just want to get a bit of an overview. Now, those clinics that have already used it for a while, some of the content that we cover is going to be quite like it's known to you already, so it's nothing new to you. But then there are a lot of features that we've actually developed in recent weeks and months that we haven't yet really communicated, and that will also be part of that video. So the first thing I wanted to cover quickly is what AudZone is and what it's not. One of the very common questions that we get asked is it a customer relationship management, like a CRM or ERM tool? And that is not what it currently is. All right. So AudZone is not a CRM system to manage your entire clinic. Rather, it is an audiology operating system and a workflow tool. It basically helps to keep you as the clinician on track. It helps the clinic owner to have a bit of an overview of what's going on. And it obviously writes notes and reports for you. And we are used to that by now. Many people have used AI for notes and reports already. That would be what we consider a scribe. But AudZone is much more than a scribe. It will also, for example, check the note compliance for you. And that could be compliance against, let's say, the HSP contract for HSP appointments. Or for private appointments, it could be the compliance against clinical standards that you want to have achieved in your practice. And it also automates recurring tasks. So think about you have a 600 and there are 3 or 4 or 5 documents that you need to create manually every single time, and AudZone can basically do all that for you. What it also does, and I think that's where the power of AI really comes in, it helps you review client information better as you basically go through a session with the patient, and then in 2 months there's another session, and then the next year. The more sessions there will be, the more history the system will know about the client, and you can then review that information much easier. Now, AudZone can be used in one of 2 ways. Either as a standalone software that runs in a browser, or it can integrate with a CRM system. At the moment, it integrates very well with CounselEar, for example. Not every CRM will be supported here. That really depends on what the CRM allows us to do. And we should say it, just that it's said, AudZone is obviously a cloud-based system, and all the servers are based also in Australia. But we get into that detail a little later. Now, just want to cover the basic workings of how AudZone actually works, that you have a little bit of a background there. Obviously, AudZone records the appointment that you are doing with your patients, right? Or with your clients. It records that as an audio file in your browser. And then once the session is finished, that audio file will be uploaded to a server, again here in Australia, and the AI system then transcribes it, like it's an audio to text conversion. And then we have basically the text readout of what happened in that appointment. And AI will then, once it's done that, go through that list of text, so to speak, and draw out certain informations. And then the artificial intelligence composes notes and reports based on templates. So we have created over 50 templates already that are audiology specific, such as an HSP 930 has a different note and a different report, for example, to 600 and 800 or private appointments. And AI knows that because it's all appointment based. And then, as I mentioned earlier, AI builds a history of that patient, so that it actually knows what's going on. And you can then, let's say, you've seen the client 3 times over the last couple of years. You can actually ask AI what happened in the last appointment, for example. Why does the client have a conductive component? And things like that will be able to be reviewed much, much easier. Now, I promise we'll get into the software in just a second. Just wanted to briefly cover what makes AudZone special, because there are a lot of AI tools around. So for AI, context is key. So what happened in a session is really key. And our system is not based on just what happens in our appointment today. What we actually do is we create a patient in AudZone, and all sessions will be stored under this patient. So it basically builds that context out. You can then write reports over multiple sessions, review those informations based on that patient. So that makes it really good. I saw your question pop up there. We'll get to that in just a moment, Tinel. Now, also what's really special about AudZone is that it is actually fully audiology focused. So this is not a tool that was built for the medical industry, for physios or for GPs. It was built for audiologists in mind. And why that matters is there's a lot of PHIs, what we call them, so personal health identifiers, right? And they are protected by privacy. And as you build an AI platform, you can actually choose how much of these personal health identifiers you are processing. And what we have done is we've really adopted the strictest privacy rules here by removing all these PHIs before it gets sent to an AI. That means that we can use more advanced artificial intelligence models. So there's a variety of different models. And the more compliant you are with certain aspects, the better the models are that you can use or that you have access to. So our AI models actually have access, or our AI platform, AudZone, I should say, has access to the most advanced AI models, whereas other normal scribes often use models that are much older because they don't meet these requirements and can't the way they are processing that information. Why we did that is a standard like consultation with your GP, for example, that takes maybe 5 minutes, 10 or 15, or if it's a long consult, it's 20 minutes, right? That is quite easily doable with the older and with the more basic AI models. But when it comes to an audiology consultation, that can easily go an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. These more basic models actually start to lose context the longer the appointment gets, because it has only a restricted kind of number of memory and what it can actually take in. Whereas AudZone is built in a way that it can accommodate easily a 2-hour initial cochlear implant switch-on appointment with a lot of complexity, and it will take all of that into consideration. Now, the last thing I want to mention before I jump into the software is these privacy things, is that our service and our hosting is Australia-based. We have consent controls for patients that you can permit or deny recordings for certain patients, for example. And we've got permissions for your team that you can set up. For example, an administrator or like, let's say, a receptionist can access certain things, whereas they can't see what managers can do in terms of meeting reviews and things like that. So there's a lot of permissions and consent controls that you can set. And also you can set an expiry when these recordings and transcripts should be automatically deleted from the platform. There will be future videos and emails that will explain to you exactly how that works. So now let's jump into the software in just a moment. What is important to notice though is when it comes to best practices and how to use it, we recommend that you have a dedicated USB microphone. It doesn't need to be one of those guys. It can be just a little table microphone, but it should be a USB microphone that's separate to all others. Laptop microphones, they can work, but they're not ideal. Some of the laptops actually have a built-in system that filters out voices that are further away because they're made for like open plan environments. And in those cases, what can happen is that the client's voice is cut out. So laptop mics can work, but they're not ideal. We recommend that you have a separate microphone. We actually recommend that you have two screens. One where you run your clinical and then one where you run AudZone. You can run it happily on one screen, but we much prefer having it on two screens. So let me jump into AudZone. And you should be able to see that now here on my other screen. Now, the first thing I want to highlight here quickly, you see AudZone is currently white. You have this dark and light mode up here. Many people haven't seen that yet. That is just a little bit of personal preference today. For today's video, we're going to stay in the light mode. Yeah. One of the more important things that I really want to mention, that's a small thing, but it is important to how you interact with it, is the feedback button at the bottom right here. When you click that, you have options to basically get in touch with us, ask a question. We are online all the time and are happy to answer questions there. Or if you found a bug, which can happen in any software, just report an issue here and send that through to us, and we will then get back to you. All right. So let's have a quick look. Let's get rid of this here quickly. There you go. All right. So let's jump into the session. And the overview, what I wanted to start with is the left-hand side. You see the sessions, you see the compliance manager, the documentation, settings, and then at the bottom you have the sign out. I am just letting someone else in the meeting here. So there we go. So this is basically just your left-hand menu, and we'll go into that in just a moment. We normally start in the sessions here. Yeah. Krista is just sending a message. Okay, dark mode is easier to see. Great. All right, let's jump over in dark mode. Here we go. That depends a little bit. We've played a lot around with the settings here. Sometimes depends on how we send it out and how your computer receives a webinar feed. It can be sometimes a little bit too bright. So we are now in dark mode. And when we click sessions here, we are in the calendar section. You can see here, this is my calendar at the moment. You can filter according to all clinicians that are available here and according to locations if you have multiple locations there. This is when it's integrated with Counselor, right? If it's not integrated with Counselor, there will be a button where you can actually take your phone and take a screenshot of your calendar and any other CRM system or even a handwritten calendar, and you can import that. You can see a list of all the patients. I've, for privacy reasons, hidden all of those here. And then you also got a session overview. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump into this session here that I've prepared for today's presentation and just opening the session. Now, I want to give you a quick overview of what happens here. And this may be quite interesting for those that have used AudZone for a long time because there's a little bit of a new feature here. So firstly, we've got the session details up here. So test client, this is essentially the name of the client that came across from either Counselor or from your calendar that you have set up in there. All right. Then we've got a little bit of a client information icon here. We look at that. Log icon. But then what's really important is this drop-down menu where you can select what type of appointment this is. Now, if you're integrated with Counselor or you've imported a calendar, it actually sets that appointment for you already. This is really important because the notes that are being generated or the reports that are being written by AudZone, they depend on the appointment type. Again, I mentioned earlier, for a 600 and for a 930 or for a private assessment, there are different requirements on the notes and different requirements on what needs to be done. All right. Now, here you have a new button where you could basically start a new meeting, a walk-in, or a new appointment if you are basically in an existing session. You can, and you want to start a new one, you can do that from here, or you jump back into the calendar doing it from there. Let's make that small again. Then on the right-hand side here, you have the recorder, the microphone selector where you can choose which microphone you want to use, and we recommend that you set it to the dedicated USB microphone. I have a whole lot of microphones in there because I'm on a relatively complicated setup here with all these camera imports and things like that. You may have an Oracle in there or a Medrex and all those type of microphones. AudZone is actually aware that these are clinical equipments and won't be using them for the recording. You can hit record here, and then you see the VU meter jump. We always recommend have a quick look. If that is jumping, that the right microphone is selected. If the microphone is muted or something like that, AudZone will warn you. But you also see this this icon here that shows a little mobile phone. And this mobile phone is basically, you could click that and use a mobile phone for recordings, or upload a recording of a session that you've done in a voice recorder, for example, if you use that that mobile phone icon here. All right. Now, on the left-hand side here, you have the session control. Then you've got a transcript tab. Here are the notes being generated, and then you have the documents. In the session control, and we go through these transcript and notes and documents in just a minute. In the session control here, you've got a few important things. You can, for example, start an HHIA questionnaire directly here out of the software. We just closed that for now. You also have a cozy option in here. Now, this is literally just being built as we speak. Like 2 days ago, we got the permission from NIL to include it into our software because it's obviously a licensing thing, but we are now building the cozy out for even more HSP compliance and audiology focus. You can review audiograms that you've uploaded here for the clients in the past, for example, things like that. But you can also, and that's really important to know here, in the notes, in the session notes and in the context, you've got a bunch of controls here. Technically speaking, this is like call it a drop zone or a scratch pad, a container, a context field. You can dump in anything. Dump in a PDF document, a Word document. You can, again, take the iPhone here. It opens a QR code. Take a snippet with your phone of a handwritten note, a report from a ENT, for example. All those type of things can be just dumped into here, and that will give AI more context, and it will base the note on all those informations. You've got a pronoun section here where you can select how the client should be addressed for him, her, all those type of things. Now, this is not necessarily done for political reasons, even though it can be certainly used for that, but it is actually made because we are excluding all those personal health identifying information. AI doesn't know if this is a he or a she because we don't transmit those things, such as the name or something like that. Sometimes AI can figure that out of the context of the conversation, if it came up, how they've referred to themselves. But the note that is written or the report that is written as a standard will refer to the client as they, them. But you as a clinician may want to refer as he or she, and then you can select that and give AI a little bit of context here. All right. So the Scratchpad, again, as I said, is a very, very important tool where you can dump in all sorts of things, like even an audiogram, like in Counsel Ear, for example. If you were to go to an audiogram, you can just copy that, drop that straight in here, Control V, and then it shows up. Now, below the session notes and the session status, you've got a checklist here. Now, this checklist is what I believe makes AudZone really valuable. This is now a checklist for an HSP client review 930, 940, because this is what was selected up here. Yeah. And now we have basically used the contract and extracted a list of requirements for this particular appointment type. That helps you to stay on track. You can click them off. You don't have to tick them off, but it definitely helps the AI to know what you've been doing without interpreting the context and things like that. But it can also do that. It's good for experienced clinicians to stay on track, but even more so if you've got new grads or people that are new to your company. And you want certain things to happen in an appointment, they are recorded here as a checklist. You can actually modify. You can modify all these checklists down the bottom there yourself. You can do that per appointment. So we've done for a wax removal, for example, we've got different requirements as for a hearing assessment or for a client review or a follow-up. And all those things show up down in here in the checklist, and you can tick them off. You can also give additional comments and just type in here if you have anything to type in. But you can just also say it out. What we often use this for is, for example, what hearing device is fitted. Let's say we are in a fitting appointment and I'm not boring the client with details that I've just fitted, I don't know, a Starkey HAI24 RIG RT in silver with an encased receiver, size 2 wire, 2 vent with an MP receiver. I don't normally say those things. So I may just write that in here, that AudZone can then incorporate that into the note settings. But you can also say it out loud. All of that will obviously be taken into consideration. And again, give that mobile icon here a go. When you click it, that basically generates a QR code. You scan that QR code, and then on your phone there's a little pop-up from AudZone, and you can use the camera to take snippets or upload files that you've already have on your phone. All right. So let me jump across to the Notes tab. So once you've stopped the recording here, what actually happens is that now the audio file gets uploaded to AudZone. We transcribe it, and then it will jump across here into the transcriptions. Now, you see there's a bunch of transcriptions in here because I've actually used a few additional recordings today to give the AI more context. Normally, you only have one in there. But let's say you've forgotten to mention something and you've already stopped recording, you can just, so it's just refreshing that now, you can click the X here at the top, yeah, and then it clears the recorder and you can start recording again in the same session, and it just adds to it. Alternatively, you can just write it in. Now, you see when the file is uploaded and it's transcribing it, it automatically rewrites the note. Yeah, so we are now in the Note tab. You see it is written the note, and at the moment the compliance checker is running. Now, this is checking the note that it has written here against the HSP contract, and it will give me a score as to which requirements I may not have satisfied because I may have missed something. And then rather than saving it and without knowing it, we use AI to make you aware. It actually takes a little while, but while it's doing that, this note here is now a template for, again, an HSP client review, okay? You can select any other template here, but it has automatically selected this template for this review because this is what the appointment type was that was indicated from the software. You see this is kind of segregated into the history review, hearing goals, device function check, and then additional activities, counseling, outcome, next steps, and it also gives us a checklist summary at the bottom. All these templates are prepared by us, so they are out of the box already available for each audiology appointment type. But if you want them different, if you want they should include more of the social aspects or the personal history of the patient, like how many grandkids they have, what the dog's name is, all those things can actually be modified. You can modify each note template yourself. There will be a video, it's a little bit beyond the scope of today's overview, how to modify the templates for notes and reports. We know that this is important to you. Now, At the top here, we see you've got a selector between shorthand, brief, standard, and detailed. It's basically just giving you an overview and an option to adjust the level of detail. At the moment, it's set to detailed. If you set that to shorthand and regenerate that, so you were to click shorthand and regenerate, it makes it very, very brief. Yeah. We won't do that right now. We just leave it here. And then you've got the compliance checker down here. It says it has satisfied 8 out of 9 rules. So I must have forgotten something. And this is now important, obviously, for your audits, right? So it said here, documentation must record any adjustments made during the aided client review. Like on purpose in this mock appointment, I haven't recorded anything that I've done anything on the settings of the hearing aid. So you are now able to write down here, for example, let me grab my keyboard. You could say adjusted HF gain downwards due to client preference, updated audiogram, activated user controls in settings. Okay, and then you can regenerate the note. Now let's see if that it should normally check that now, and should tell us that we are 9 out of 9 compliant. Sometimes it doesn't recognize everything, and we need to keep in mind, and this is important. This is important to mention here quickly. AI makes mistakes. AI is trained on human behavior. Humans make mistakes. AI makes mistakes too. So when it creates a note, for example, I want you to read the note, right? Don't just blindly accept it. It may have misunderstood things. And that is important to consider, okay? So just always read that. Now, same for reports, by the way. Just always read it and review it. You can actually write directly in the template here, right? Device function check. You could say run device through HIT. That's the hearing aid test box. Meeting all specifications, all specs, for example. Yeah. Now, by the way, you see down here the 9 out of 9 rules are now satisfied, so all compliance checks have been passed. So you could copy that note out now, and you know that if you were audited, that this note is compliant against the current HSP contract. Whenever you change a note and you've done a few sentences, you get this icon down here that says Learn Style. It basically learns how you personally write notes, and then you can just click that if you want to, and then AI will, over the months, learn to write notes that are more sounding like you. This is the same for reports, where all those things will be then based on how you personally write that. Now, if you are not happy with certain things, or you want to include certain things, you also have the option to just press regenerate. Type in here whatever you may want to have included in the note, and then you can regenerate. We won't do that right now. And that's the same here with AI. You can basically say improve, then there's an assistant, and you basically type in, give it instructions like you would give a human instruction. Say, well, I don't want you to use bullet points, use paragraphs in professional conversational language, for example, and then you can regenerate that if you wanted to. Now, once you are happy with how the note is looking, you can copy that out. And once you copy that, you can copy that as HTML for Council Ear. You can export it as plain text, or even create a PDF or Word document, right? So in our case, we use HTML and then drop that into Council Ear, and the note would now be copied, and I can easily transfer it over. But the note will always be available in AudZone, and this is something that I wanted to mention to you. You see you've got the test client name at the top, and right next to it, you've got that view patient profile. I use that like with literally every patient, because basically I click on it and it gives me an overview. It shows me there are 7 past sessions. There are audiograms that I've uploaded in the past, gives me an overview if I've ever done an HHIA questionnaire, for example, and what the scores were. So I go here into sessions, for example, go into the session from the 6th of December, and I can literally just review the note here, just briefly, just go through it, see, okay, this is what we've done last time, this is what we want to do today, great, X out of there, and we are back in the patient. So this is just a good overview feature. We've recently built that. Not many people are aware of that, but yeah, you can use that for a quick overview. Just want to jump back into the session control quickly, because there's actually a really cool feature hidden in the side, and that is this, this little chat icon here. This chat icon is can do two things. It can chat with AI in general. So if you want to ask it for a feature for a certain device, for example, right? You can ask general AI to do that, or it also references the context of the patient. So our receptionists use it all the time. When we said, reserve a hearing aid in a certain color, but we didn't write that down, for example, or give that instruction to a colleague, they can basically ask which color was discussed, what wire length was measured in the appointment, all those type of things, where you can basically ask AI questions about today's and the past appointments that is only based on this particular patient. And this is a really cool feature that I also use daily. Quite a cool little thing. All right. Now, the compliance checker I have mentioned to you down here. Now, again, briefly, this is out of the box, configured for all HSP appointments. If that's not configured in your particular system, then you may have maybe one of our early adopters, and the system hasn't automatically imported that, because it does depend on the appointment types, how you run your clinic. Reach out to us if you want help in adding that. But we will actually make another video as well on this compliance checker, where you can use that in your business to check compliance on other appointments too. So you can actually set requirements. Say, for example, for wax removals, I said I want education to be included, right? So a quick discussion with the patient. I want to be included that we do an otoscopy for a wax removal, quite important. We want always to do a tympanometry, and we always want to do a hearing screening afterwards with a hearing screener. So 4 items. And I now can assess all my colleagues against the compliance requirements that I have set for my clinic, right? I'll show you that in just a second, how that works. So you can set requirements how you want your practice to run. You know, like let me talk to the business owners for a second. You know how it often is. You take a new staff member on, and they have got their own experience. They've worked for many years in other clinics, and they've got certain ways. Now you want certain things to be done slightly differently. Now you can say that once, and then they may remember that for a few sessions, but it's quite easy for them to fall back into their own routines. And then you as a business owner don't have the time, don't have the capacity to constantly review notes for every single one of your staff members, for every single one of your patients, that the guidelines that you've set are actually being followed. And the compliance checker here can actually be used to achieve just that. That you can see, okay, I have certain requirements and I want them to be followed in private appointments. For HSP, again, we've pre-programmed all of that. But you may have other requirements that you want to add to it, right? And you can do all that. Let me jump back into the software now. All right, so let's quickly have a look into documents, because notes and documents are distinctly different. Notes are, there's only one note after an appointment, right? That's the clinical note that has, like, that documents everything that has happened during the appointment. But under documents, there could be many. So you could generate, for example, a new document here, and you can select that from a list. Yeah. a list of your templates that you have in your account, or a list of templates that we have created for certain appointment types. And again, you can add your own templates as well. You can include which sessions should be taken into consideration to write this document. And what we have actually done is we've created a document flow system. This is really cool for like HSP appointments, or when you have certain things that you always want to happen. Basically what it does, again, AudZone knows, right? AudZone knows this was an HSP appointment at 9:30. And then I have told AudZone once in the settings, for an HSP appointment, I want you to always print out hearing device instructions, an assessment report, and a client summary, and for example, COSI goals. And then it automatically creates those that you've selected. Now, this is just an example here. It has created the client appointment summary, very brief in this instance. A client attended for a hearing aid review, and what was done, the outcome of today's appointments, and the recommendation. This is something that you could give, for example, to the carer, to the family member, or just to the client themselves if they want to keep their own file. The hearing device instruction. So that's a template that I use quite often. You know how often you explain in an initial fitting client never had hearing aids, right? You explain, this is how the buttons work, this is what the lights mean, this is what the sounds mean, and it's quite overwhelming. And you explained all of that, clients seem to have understood it, and at the very end they say, actually, can you write that down for me? And you know, if you give them the printed out copy from the software, for example, or if you give them the booklet, even worse, the client ends up more confused than smarter, because often they include all informations that are possible, but not quite what you have explained to the client. Now, this hearing device instruction will take into consideration what you have explained, how this device was set up for this patient in particular. Great use of AI here, to just say, okay, volume control, how does that work? Program change, what do the LEDs and the sound signals mean? How do you charge them? And so on. If you mentioned insertion, for example, that would be mentioned here too. We haven't done that in this particular transcript. But yeah, so here you've got basically documents that were auto-created with a document flow. Again, there will be videos and instructions to that in the future. But then you can also click here, create a document. And if you don't find a template, you can just click into custom, write in here what it should be saying. Okay. So you could, for example, you've discussed 5 or 6 appointments, write an appointment schedule down for me. And it would draw them all out if you've mentioned them. Yeah. So you can do the custom ones here on the side too. Now, one thing I want to mention quickly, and that is on the left-hand side here under documentation, is if you've ever got questions and so on, there are videos and documents in here that help you make AudZone your own and how to modify them. So you can just click on certain videos here and play them. There won't be sound when I share that here, so I won't play it, but you can at any time just have a look in there. We've recorded a bunch of videos and so on, and we will continuously doing more to make your life easier here with AudZone so that it really helps you in your day-to-day life. So that's the documentation tab on the left-hand side here. All right. Now, let me jump back into the session quickly. There we go. It's my session. And I've mentioned to you earlier that we have created or that we've gotten permission by the NRL to include the COSI. We've done that in a certain way, and we are sharing an update once we've done that. Now, under fillable PDFs here, so we are again in the Documents tab, not AI documents, but fillable forms. You can click that, and we've got the NAL client-oriented, so the COSI. We've built that in here, so you can actually create that out of the session. So it will take the session context into consideration and create your document. All right. Now, we also have, for example, the prior financial authorization request for DVA in here and all sorts of things. You can also say, well, I want to upload, and I think this is not so good to see in the dark mode. Let me switch over in the light mode. You see here is the NAL document, for example, that's been filled already. I can view the PDF. And now you see this is basically the original NAL document because many people still like it or want to keep it that way, especially for HSP compliance. And you can just, you can click, you can edit, and then save it printed, and save it to your CRM. But also, I don't know if you do NDIS, for example, they may have forms that they want to have filled out. You can actually upload those forms. The raw form from DVA, doctors, police checks, like hearing checks for police, firefighters, pilots, taxi drivers, etc. You can upload those via the upload button, pop it in. Our AI will then analyze that PDF document, will mark all the fields, will take the context of the session, draw that all out and pre-fill that form for you, and then save it as a document that is in your database. And you can just quite easily say, okay, great, police check, we've done that before. Click, select the police template, and just get that generated. So you can play around with that. Every clinic has different requirements, what they want or what they work with. Yeah. And then here the AI documents. All right. Now, let me pause here for a moment and we'll jump over to the compliance manager. Now, again, the compliance manager now, this is more for managers and business owners. Not every one of you will have access to that because that's really on business owners level to get an overview. Why we have created that is the note compliance checker down here. This is really for the clinician. It's for the clinician to know, have I done a good job against the contract here? Because each clinician, we know that, I was like that when I was employed, and I know that of my employees now, they don't want to let us down as business owners. They want to support us the best they can. They never want to be responsible for a failed audit. So this is now a clinician tool to help the clinician to be as compliant as possible. So two things, right? We have the session control and the checklist that reminds the clinician of what needs to be done. And then we have the compliance checker that checks the note against that compliance requirement. So really very few excuses left to not be compliant when it comes to the documentation of the note. This does not take into consideration your claim dates and the other compliance aspect on that end, but it's talking about the clinical note here. So that's clinician level. But at the end of the day, it's the business owner that needs to pay back certain things if the clinicians weren't compliant. For that, we've built actually the compliance manager. If we jump into there, you basically see a monthly trend on what happens. So you see, for example, here from August to January, the last rolling 6 months, we were at 80% compliance. And then in December, we dropped a bit. And in January, we dropped a little bit further. That is quite likely because, number one, my most compliant employees weren't in the business. It was just me. And we were very time pressed. So when you're time pressed, you lose details, like you lose certain things, and you see that performance decline. And now you as a manager, as a business owner, want to take action and review that, right? You can see this is the overall compliance against all clinicians and against all notes. But down the bottom here, you can see, for example, for wax removals, what are the particular issues there. You can run all the checks here and see that on a like for each clinician on an appointment basis. The rules are here. We'll get into that later. But you can see according to appointment types which ones have compliance checks associated with it. Look, let's not get too deep into this right now because this is really for another video. But this is a great tool for example, to see, all right, which items are often missed in a certain appointment, and then you can address that. You can review that by clinician, right? Why am I the least compliant, for example, right? So those type of things may want to be addressed. So that's just a little bit of an overview of what the compliance checker can do. Now, this is not really designed to micromanage clinicians. And for the clinicians, I want to say that this is not to micromanage each one of you of what you do and what you don't do. There should still be an allowance for personal style. At least that's how I run my business. But then this is developed so that business owners have the tools. If they have 5, 6, 8, or even more clinicians, even for 3 clinicians, let's be honest, it's quite difficult for me as a manager or business owner to make sure they are compliant. This gives me a good tool as the business owner to do those type of things. So with that, we're pretty much at the end of the general overview that I wanted to give you. I'm just jumping quickly in the chat here. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to dump them in here. Okay. So let's have a look. Does AudZone keep a history of the client if the transaction is deleted? There's a question. No, it doesn't. If the transcript is deleted, that is basically what everything is based on, right? The only thing that it does keep is the notes, for example. So you have the transcript. You've got the transcript on one side, and based on this transcript, a note was written. So that's a separate document. They are separate. Transcript on one hand, and then document. That document was already created, and you delete the transcript. The note will still remain in AudZone for you for review. All right, but the transcript is gone, so you couldn't now create a new note or regenerate that because what it was based on is gone. But because this has already been established, the note will remain. Okay. All right. I see Christo here has answered a couple of questions regarding the integration with other systems. Okay, Tina, if the appointment type in Counselee is wrong, how do you change the template that is used in AudZone? Okay, great question. Let me jump into AudZone real quick. So I'll open my session here. Where are we? Go to Daniel. There you go. Open the session. So this is the appointment type that comes through. All right. If you have booked that in as a 9:30, 9:40, but it is not a 9:30, 9:40, it is something different. It's let's say it's best practice gold visit number 1, for example. You were to change that here, right? And now it basically loads the new templates. And in the note, you could now also regenerate that here with a follow-up note, for example. If you hover over them, so this is now on the note side. So this one here affects the session list. If there are any checklists, for example, it would load new checklists. Some of them are assigned. So here, for example, there's a new checklist assigned. It will load then new checklists. But on a node level, you were to just change here. Yeah, this is the template that's applied to the node. So go over client review. There's implant mapping, for example. There's a wax removal. Those type of things. Yeah. And you could just say, look, this was actually a follow-up. Let's regenerate that as a follow-up. And now it applies the new template. All right. So let me have a quick look if there is... can you combine, let's say, a 940 and an 800? Yeah, look, some of those can be combined, but you would have to kind of do that on your clinic level. We will make a video about that, how that is done, that you can basically say, we've got an appointment type that's a 940 and an 800, and we have a combined note that has a 940 at the top and the 800 at the bottom, or the other way around. So those things can be created. Yeah. Okay, Terry, I want to write a report to a GP, but I have no template. How do I get the AI to do a letter from the session? Okay, cool. Let's jump into that. It may have been answered into what I've shared earlier, but you would basically go to Documents, go Generate Template, Generate Document, and then you've got Select Template here. You can click into that and then choose from the library templates. This is what we have created. Or you just go into Custom and tell it what you want it to write. Yeah. So write a detailed GP report, include medical history, family history, test results. You don't even need to put punctuation, commas, anything in that, and recommendations. And then you just where to say that's a GP report, give it a title, otherwise you can't generate it, and you generate the document, and now it basically does that. But keep in mind, this is now an ad hoc. AI is trying to do its best, right? Reason for the report, medical history, family history, and it will basically give us all those type of informations here. But you can create your own templates. Let me actually show you quickly how that works. You can go into Settings. You've got a template catalog here if you want to look for certain templates. Let's say for a document, right? There's a wax removal report, and then you could say, click the 3 dots on the side here. And then you could, well, this is now an export because I've already imported it, but you would be able to import these. Here, click the import button to your library, for example, right? On the other hand, if you want to create your own, you can go into Clinic Setup and Templates. So this is your own template catalog, is what we have created for you already. Yeah. So you go into the Clinic Setup, and let's say we want to do a note document, or let's do it like a GP report. Okay. We want to have a document, so that's a GP report. And then we want to have that, for example, for a wax removal, right? So this is that. Yeah. You could now say, for example, you create a new one with AI here. Yeah. This is now creating a document, for example. Click Document, click Next. Name it GP report. Okay, GP, come on. I can't type. Here we go. GP report. Write in there what you wanted to do. GP report with history, results, and outcomes. Be really specific here. This isn't going to be a bad example because I'm very brief. Be very specific. Tell everything that you have in mind that should be created. Bullet points, paragraphs, tone of voice, those type of things, right? You can assign compliance documents to it. A bit too much for this video. And you just generate and review that. And now AI will basically create, it will now create in the background a template that you can then modify, customize for your own, and then you can use that for every single client moving forward without going through all this elaborate process. So AudZone is quite a versatile software. You can create a lot of things. This actually takes quite a few minutes to generate in the background. But that's where you could, for example, generate those type of templates. So that's one of the ways you can do that. And if you have any questions, if you need any assistance with that, just feel free to reach out. Yeah, we are obviously going to make more videos in the future of how to do that exactly, and there will also be PDF documents in AudZone on that documentation list, a step-by-step guide on how to create those type of things. All right, so let me jump back here quickly. It has now created the document here, the report. This is basically what it has come up with. And I, for example, say like, nah, address, absolutely not. We definitely do not need address. We don't need phone number. We don't even need this. Patient details, okay, well, actually not really. We're going to take that out, okay? Reason for the visit, and now reason for the report. If you were to click Alt and click on there, you can actually describe in here what it should include in this variable, all right? And that way you can basically create your own template, how you want it, how brief, and so on. You save that. I won't do that here now. Yeah, it will give you templates the way that you want them. And then once they're created, you can assign them to certain appointments that for a wax removal, for a hearing assessment, it will always use this report and always auto-generate those type of things, for example. All right. Now let me have a quick look if there's another question. All right. Open Teams. There we go. All right. Christo has responded to those already. Okay. Again, the documentation tab here on the side will give you the videos and also the PDF documents as to how to set it all up. Go through that, shoot us questions, and yeah, that is. Oh, can't see AudZone because I haven't switched over. Here's the documentation hub. On the side here, you see certain categories: onboarding, setup, configuration, tips and tricks, feature-specific things for the compliance checker, how to set up your own rules. All of those things will be documented here. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. Now, lunch break is likely over for most of you. I hope you found this helpful. Please let us know if you need any further insights into more details, for example. Or what particular features you have in mind that may be helpful, all right? Now, with that, we are ending this here. We will send a report, like an email out with the recording, just in case you had to leave early or came late, and you can review all that information. Now, I hope you found that really helpful. Again, reach out. Final word. We are building this not to build a huge business and make tons of money. We're building this because we've got a passion for the audiology sector. So that means if you have ideas, if you have requirements, if you've got things that you want to AI to help you, please let us know. We may be able to build those features for you. So yeah, with that, I say goodbye. Thank you very much for jumping in today. I wish you all the very best. And we'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.